Hey guys, Nicole here with Obscure Reptiles and Caging, and today we're going to be talking about if live or frozen is better for your reptile. So let's get started. Hey guys, so in this video we're going to mostly be talking about ball pythons. The reason why is a lot of colubrids, boas, stuff like that, they're really good at eating frozen thawed, but it's a little bit trickier sometimes to get ball pythons to eat frozen, and some people, your snake will eat either or. So some people are always trying to decide which is better for that animal. So we're going to go over the pros and cons of frozen versus live. First and foremost, it all depends on what your animal is willing to eat. If you have a super picky ball python, you've had them their whole life, they're super picky, and they will only take live, you can try for years and you might get them to switch, or they might not switch. It's something you have to be okay with when you get ball pythons. Sometimes throughout their life they will change. Sometimes they will eat frozen, sometimes they'll eat live, sometimes they want mice, sometimes they want rats, sometimes they're all over the place and they'll go on food strikes. So number one is make sure your animal is willing to take frozen, if that's even something that you want to try to consider. Something I have also noticed is if you have a ball python that will take a live rat but not a frozen rat, sometimes you can trick them by giving them a frozen mouse. Mice tend to be something that's more of a prize thing that that snake wants. A lot of my snakes will not take a frozen rat, but they will take a frozen mouse. So that will work until they're a certain size. And if you're trying to get them to switch, it's a lot easier sometimes to get them onto frozen mice than frozen rats or frozen ASF. But that's just in my experience. All this is stuff that I have found works for me, might not work for you, but if you are a very picky snake, won't take frozen rat, I highly recommend trying a mouse or ASF. If you're in the process of trying to get your ball python to eat frozen, don't just put it in there. Sometimes you have to do different things. Sometimes you have to take long tongs and make the mouse or rat that's frozen dance. You should warm it up, don't heat it up, don't put it in the microwave. I've heard that a couple of times recently. Just make sure you let that get to room temperature. You can put it on a heating pad. You could leave it out somewhere that's a little bit warmer just so it can start warming up. But you want that rodent to be similar to body temperature of a live rodent to try to get them to entice them into eating it. If that doesn't work, then the things I recommend is try feeding at night, and if they won't eat at all, then put it on top of their hide inside their enclosure and leave it in there overnight. If they do not eat by the morning, you can remove, but sometimes if left in overnight, because a lot of these animals do more hunting at nighttime, then they will actually come across it and eat it themselves. But don't get frustrated. Sometimes it takes, like I said, a really long time to switch over to frozen. But let's say you have a snake and it will take anything, and you're trying to decide, should I feed it live or should you feed it frozen? Number one thing is, what do you have access to? Do you have live rodents? Do you breed your own rodents? Do you have a way to dispatch extra rodents? If you just have one snake, you decide to make a breeding colony of mice, but you have way too many mice, what are you doing with those extras? Do you have a way to humanely freeze those rodents? You can't just put them in the freezer. And do you have people who want to buy them if you're breeding, so you have live and you don't need frozen? What are you going to do with those extras? Those are things to kind of keep in mind and have an idea of before you decide to breed your own, only get live. Some places you can only get live or frozen locally, depending on your pet stores, your local breeders. Also remember, you have to rely on wherever you're getting these rodents from to know that they are healthy, to know that they're always going to be in stock when you need it. So make sure you think about all this stuff when buying a ball python or a couple. Now, if you just have one pet ball python and you don't have any room in your freezer, then you want to do live, go for it. But if it's something where you morally cannot give them anything but frozen, then I would highly recommend getting yourself a corn snake, because sometimes ball pythons just will not take frozen. So for the live, some of the biggest pros that I see for people who have a lot of snakes is you're producing your own, you know what is happening to that rodent, you know what it's eating, you know how clean it is, you know how well it's been taken care of. And if for some reason you go to feed a snake and it doesn't eat, you can just put that rat back into a bin, grow it up a little bit bigger, and try to feed it to somebody else. I feel that's a big thing to prevent waste. If you've only got, let's say, 10 ball pythons, you defrost 10 rats, and only 2 of them eat, now you have to throw away 8 of them. A big thing is when we feed ours frozen, every time we defrost, let's say 6 of them and we need 10, all 6 of them get eaten, so then we have to defrost 4 more, and then nobody eats those last 4. Or if we defrost 10 and nobody wants it, we're kind of out of luck. So we tend to defrost less than what we need, so that way if somebody doesn't eat, we can try it with somebody else. That's also part of the reason we got Dumeral's boas and our bug-eye boa Halo, because the three of them, they will eat frozen. They would eat one a day if we gave it to them, but when we feed frozen and we have extras, we get to use it on them, and then nothing gets wasted. A lot of times you get a better food response when you're using live. That's because that's what the animal is used to doing. They're wild animals, but it doesn't mean that that's what's best for them, especially if you're somebody who just wants to throw a feeder in and then leave and go do something else. Some real big negatives to having live is sooner or later your snake will get bit. Doesn't matter the size of the rodent, what you're feeding it. If you're feeding it live, sooner or later that snake's going to get some scars, it's going to get bit. Generally it's going to be okay, it's not going to get infected or anything like that, but you have to keep your eye on it still. Normally within 1 or 2 sheds it'll go away, but it is something that's going to happen when feeding live. And if you have a $5,000 ball python you want no scars on, then you probably don't want to do live. Another thing is, if you're feeding live, you have to make sure you're keeping an eye on that animal. If you feed live and then you go to the store, you come back, that live rat could have started to chew on, eat, or bite your snake, and you don't want that. Sometimes snakes don't want to eat, they will go and hide, and if you threw it in there and you come back 3 days later, that rat got hungry, it will start eating the snake, and the snake will not do anything to defend itself. There are horrific photos online, if you guys want to look it up yourselves, of rat bites on snakes. People think that there's some big scary predator, but if they're not hungry, they're not going to eat the rat. So you have to make sure you're keeping a really good eye on it. So let's say you've got 100 snakes and you throw a live into everyone, and you just kind of pop your head in and check in 10 minutes and you miss one. That's a huge thing, especially when you have so many animals. So a frozen thawed might be a better route for you. Really the only negatives of having frozen that I've come up with is I have had a couple of snakes that if you throw a frozen in and then you check on it 20 minutes later, it's not where you left it, it's all gone, we're good. I do a check on it the next day and it smells a little funny, and all they did was move it and push it out of the way, and now we've got a really gross frozen thawed that's been sitting in there for 24 hours, and that's not fun. Other than that, like I had said before, defrosting a bunch when you don't need a bunch, that can be a hassle and a big waste if you are defrosting too many, or if you, let's say you don't have a freezer space. If you don't have access to bulk feeders, it can be pretty expensive going to a pet store. But a little tip, if you go to a lot of reptile shows or you find local rodent breeders, you can normally get them in bulk. But again, you need a lot of freezer space, and let's say you've got 4 snakes, 4 different sizes. Now you need 4 different size rats or mice times 50 each or whatever it is. That's a lot of space. And if you've only got 1 or 2 eating each size, you defrost it, they don't eat it, that could be a big hassle and a big waste. I think there's a really good balance between, let's say if you've got 20 snakes and half will eat frozen, half won't. I think you can find a really good balance between maybe breeding just a couple of rodents to be able to have for your live, and then when you have too many, you can humanely euthanize some of the extras of different sizes, freeze them for yourself, and then have them for your other snakes. I think that's a really great way to go about it. Or if you could get everyone to eat frozen, you could still breed yourself, and just, again, that way, again, you know what's going on with that rodent. You know what it's eating, where it's been, what it's been doing. Or if you find good local breeders of rodents, go ahead and buy from them. But if you, let's say you're buying live for 20 snakes, you're going there every single week, you're relying on that person decides they don't want to breed anymore, and now you have nowhere to get live and no one will take frozen, that could be a really big hassle. So keep that in mind depending on how many animals you have, who you're relying on, and what the market is like. I know a lot of different people I've talked to in a lot of different states have no one locally that breed or do anything like that, so they have to do it for themselves. Now don't let anybody bully you into feeding live or feeding frozen for your ball python or any species of snake that you have. As long as your reptile is being fed, the feeders are being handled with care and respect, and you morally feel good about yourself, then it is okay. If you prefer frozen, that is all you want to do, like I said, maybe don't have a ball python, but if you can find one that eats frozen, that's a fantastic pet. If you only want to do live, then please keep a really good eye on your snake. If you're flexible to both, then I think it's really good to have reptiles, or specifically ball pythons, that are flexible and will take live or frozen of any of the species. Alright guys, thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, you can put them in the comments below. If you haven't already, please subscribe. We do a few videos every single week. So I'll see you guys in the next video.